Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm back after a long time and this video will be in English only. I was not really getting any content from a very long time. I was not sure what to make, to be very honest. I had too many options in my mind, but I was not sure as to what is it that I should be delivering at this point of time. And then recently I was doing some consultations as usual. Um, so I came across this pattern that I was seeing in ascendants, and the planets that are there in the ascendant in the first house. So then I was motivated to make this particular video. So today's video is all about planets in the first house and what is the pattern of these planets in the first house. So, if I begin with the planet that is Jupiter being in the first house, now I am not going to discuss about planets being retrograde because that will just make the length of this video too long. I am only talking about planets, that's all. And of course, being retrograde or combusted will change the flavor of what I'm delivering. Let's say if you have a planet that is Jupiter and it is sitting in the first house. So first of all, we know that Jupiter is one of the benefics in astrology, and Jupiter, when it goes and sits in the first house, it gives a sense of wisdom to a native, right? So that is very basic. But some of the patterns that I noticed in the consultations that I recently did was that, of course, if it is retrograde, then a lot of things change. If it is combusted, then a lot of things change. Jupiter being in the first house, coming back to what I saw in the consultations, was that it makes a person bulky, like I am. It makes a person either on the bulkier, stout side, or it makes the person on the lean side. That is one of the things that I have noticed, although I sometimes do online consultations and I've not seen people, but they tell me this thing. Apart from this, the aspects that goes on to the 5th, 7th and 9th house, this makes a person blessed in these areas, even though if the 7th lord, the 9th lord and the 5th lord have gone and sat into troublesome placements, but still these areas of this particular native's life gets blessed because Jupiter is there and it's a evergreen benefic, right? Whenever you're trying to study someone, either it be it your client or be it your friend, family, you're trying to understand. Whenever a Jupiter in the ascendant is placed, you have to consider the fact that this person is lucky in a lot of areas of life. And I'm not talking about conjunctions also, aspects also, just that Jupiter, if it is sitting alone, that's what I mean to say. Because Jupiter is naturally in Kalpurush Kundli, the lord of 12th and 9th, right? So naturally the 9th lord represents expansion, growth, opportunities. 12th lord represents spirituality and a spirituality that is quite eccentric. It's difficult to understand for other people because it's all hidden. So naturally Jupiter is the significator of the sign Pisces and Sagittarius, and then when the ascendant is occupied by Jupiter, then it just simply represents that a person has these traits immensely. Of course, now if the flavor is again changing, because I'm not even talking about the zodiac signs, I'm just talking about Jupiter itself just sitting there and what is it signifying as per physical traits and other things. So that's about Jupiter. Now, another thing that I've noticed with people who have Venus in the ascendant, although I find this conjunction very rarely, but at least in my consultations I have not manifested such people yet. A lot, there have been, but not many. So when Venus is sitting in the first house, the person has large expressive eyes. The eyes are really beautiful, they're attractive. There's a sense of charm in the person's appearance, as well as such natives are very eased out and relaxed, just like people who have Jupiter in the first house, because such natives really do not, have a habit of working really hard. There was this person that I knew, and she was very much attracted to all things Venusian, luxury, comfort, and all of it. So even if it is sitting in, let's say, any of the signs from all the 12 zodiac signs, the results are pretty much going to be the same. A person is very much indulgent, is the word that we can use over here. And since Venus has first aspect, so this first aspect of Venus, so that this one aspect of Venus, that is, it looks 7 places away. It spots light. It's Venusian light or it's Jupiterian light. So Jupiter has 3 aspects which I discussed about, but Venus, it has one aspect, that's it. So this one aspect that falls onto the 7th house, this blesses the person with these the areas of the 7th house. So 7th house in Kalpurush Kundli is originally ruled by Venus itself, and in Kalpurush Kundli the 2nd house is also originally the house of Venus. So naturally, what happens is that Venus, when it gets placed in the first house, I have seen that the matters of 2nd and 7th are, somewhat safeguarded. Just like how I told you that even with Jupiter, if the 5th, 7th and 9th lords are not really placed in a benefic situation, still the aspects of the houses are going of the planet Jupiter. And since Lord Jupiter casts his light on these 5th, 7th and 9th houses, then these particular houses get activated and charged in a positive manner. Similarly, with again my observation with Venus in first house, their 2nd and 7th lords, 7th houses get a benefic. So the 7th lord gets a benefic cast. And even with people who have Venus, again Venus first house, 12 places away is the 12th house, right? So the 12th house gets really strong over here for such natives. There are expenditures, losses, sudden ones, as well as the subconscious level ones. The dreams can become really very creative with this placement, and this is happening because any house 12 places away from Venus, be it Venus is in your 7th, then 6th house, if Venus is in your 6th, then 5th house, like that, so that house gets charged, because any planet 12 places away from Venus, any house, which is 12 places away from Venus, does well. And when it does well in a benefic way. The reason for that is because Venus is originally, it gets exalted in the sign, in the house of 12th house. Venus gets exalted in the 12th house. It's not because of its sign placement. If you see, Venus is exalted in Pisces. That's why this particular placement, whether if your Venus, it sits in Pisces or not, right? While Venus finds its Digbal in the 4th house, what happens is that the 12th house is the house of natural exaltation for Venus. The 12th house becomes strong, and this 12th house is of bed pleasures, intimacy, anything that happens on the bed, anything that is to do with expenditures, places that are away from house, from originally your homeland and the birth town, like where you spent your childhood and everything. So it also increases the pleasures that you take from all these exotic lands that are far away from home. There is this trick of understanding past life relationship patterns. You can find that if Venus is placed 9 places away, whatever zodiac is placed 9 places away from Venus, that tells the past life patterns. So in this case, Venus, if it's in the first house, then the 9th lord and the 9th house zodiac sign is indicating a lot even the planet that is sitting in the ninth house, if you have any, is indicating a lot about the past life pattern and relationships. That is one another thing that you can see, and I have seen that in observation. Whatever that I say, I tell to the client. I would not say that every time I am correct, but most of the times, because I'm trying to gain an understanding of the same subject, so most of the times things come out to be correct. What I've understood is that when I'm wrong, when I'm false, when my analysis is not correct, at that point of time I lacked some clarity about the zodiac sign or the planet, to be very honest, because it happens. I'm just a beginner in astrology, right? Another thing, now let's, if we move on, because I can go on and on about Venus. This sun, so sun, whenever it's in the first house, it finds its, again, sun is, it gets exalted in the sign of Aries, and whenever sun goes in the first house, it finds its natural exaltation house, so it behaves very well there, even if it is debilitated, let's say. If it is a sun in seventh house, I have seen that most of the time there is one thing, people have broad foreheads. Even with sun sitting in the seventh house gives broad foreheads to people, because ascendant is ideally our physical self, right? Sun sitting in the first house has behaves like, it's in Aries, but of course the zodiac sign that sits there changes the flavor and the scheme of the entire thing again. So one of the patterns that I've noticed with sun in the first house is that, of course, sun also has only one aspect. So this one aspect of Saturn, if it's in the first house, it falls onto the seventh house naturally, and the seventh house matters actually get a little bit agitated. Okay, the seventh house matters actually become problematic for this native, like business partnerships, collaborations with people, including the romantic life of the person, because seventh house is our partners. So yeah, because the sun is very bright, when sun is falling, when sun is casting its aspect onto the seventh, it's giving heat to all these matters, and heat is essentially its aggression, its burning of karmas. So sun in the first house itself is indicating that there is a lot of karma that you have with the body, there is a lot of karma that you hold in the seventh house matters. And like I said, essentially the forehead is quite broad, the built is good, physical build is good, the physique is nice. Person may be wearing specs, if depending upon how afflicted it is, or it not is, it's not. Moving on to Mars. So whenever Mars comes in the first, fourth, seventh, eighth, and 12th houses, it makes a person manglik. So for Mars in first house, this person is manglik. This person is also quite aggressive. Physical features are simple, the height may not be quite lengthy, because Mars gives a person very average height. And the reason, I tried to understand what is the reason for this. And as per all the mythological stories and everything, so far I have not read what is the reason for it, but I just imagined something, I just thought of something, and maybe this is the reason why whenever Mars aspects the first house or is sitting in the first house, the natives do not get a very lengthy height. And the reason for that is Mars is known to transform itself. Mars can transform itself like the phoenix. It can become extremely small, like Lord Hanuman. It's well mentioned in the Ramayana. And Lord Hanuman can also, increase his size depending upon what is he's planning to do next. So for that reason, a lot of energy that these Martian people hold in them, Mars first house natives, it's very much to do with the soul. We think of Mars as just physical anger and all of those very basic, mainstream, mundane lines that pop up on the internet, on the Google. But it's not that. It's not just that. Mars is very much a spiritual planet, especially if it's your Atmakara Graha, as per Gemini Sutra. But let's say if it's not your Atmakara Graha, it's sitting in the first house itself, and it denotes that from past life, you hold body karma. You hold a lot of karma that has to do with transformation, because in Kalpurush Kundli, originally 8th house, Scorpio. So these Aries and Scorpion energy, Arian and Scorpion energy is there in the first house person, Mars first house person. And then Mars is aspecting its 4th, 7th and 8th houses from the first house. So what this is doing now is that all these areas of your life, in your past life, you've not done them properly, and you need to work hard for all of these areas of your life. Then moving on, I won't be able to explain like each and every aspect of it. Maybe I'll do it some other day.